I found out my husband was cheating from his own mother. My mother-in-law called me on a random Tuesday afternoon to ask if I'd forgiven my husband yet, and that was the exact moment I found out he was cheating on me. I want you to sit with that for a second, because it took me a long time to sit with it myself. Not a text message, not a stray receipt, not even a friend pulling me aside with that careful, apologetic voice people use when they're about to ruin your week. I found out from his own mother, who assumed I already knew. My name is Renee. I'm 36. I'd been married to a man named Marcus for 7 years, together for 9. We met in our late 20s at a mutual friend's barbecue, back when everything about him still felt uncomplicated. Easy laugh, steady hands, the kind of person who remembered how you took your coffee after hearing it once. I fell for him slowly, and then, all at once, the way people describe in books that I used to think exaggerated things. We built an ordinary life together, a house in a quiet subdivision, 2 dogs, a shared calendar color-coded by whose turn it was to do groceries. I worked as a physical therapist, he worked in commercial real estate, and most weeks our biggest disagreement was about what to watch on Friday nights. His mother, Diane, had never fully warmed to me, not in the dramatic way you see in movies, but in a quieter, colder way. A woman who was polite at holidays and distant everywhere else, who I always suspected loved the idea of her son more than she loved the actual people he chose to love. We spoke maybe 4 times a year, always briefly, always a little stiff. So when my phone rang on a Tuesday afternoon and her name came up on the screen, I remember being surprised enough to actually answer instead of letting it go to voicemail like I usually would have. "Renee," she said, her voice unusually gentle. "I just wanted to check in. How are you holding up?" I told her I was fine, genuinely confused about what she meant. "With everything," she said. "I know it's been a hard few months." I laughed a little, assuming she meant something vague and generic, work stress, maybe, or the renovation we'd been putting off. "It's been normal, actually. Why, did Marcus say something?" There was a pause on the line, a specific kind of pause, the kind where you can practically hear someone realizing they've said too much. "You don't know," she said. It wasn't a question. "Know what, Diane?" Another pause, longer this time. "I think you need to talk to my son." I sat down on the kitchen floor, phone still pressed to my ear, some instinctive animal part of my brain understanding what was happening before the rest of me caught up. "Diane, please, just tell me." She sighed, the sound of someone who'd walked into a conversation she clearly hadn't meant to have. "I assumed you knew about the woman from his office. Jenna, they've been. Renee, I thought you knew. I wouldn't have said anything if I'd known you didn't know." I don't remember much of the rest of that call. I remember thanking her, which, in retrospect, is an absurd thing to have done, thanking my mother-in-law for accidentally informing me my husband was cheating on me. I remember sitting on that kitchen floor for a long time after we hung up, our dog Biscuit eventually coming to lie against my leg, confused about why I wasn't getting up. When Marcus came home that evening, I was still sitting at the kitchen table, and I didn't say anything clever or planned. I just said, "Who's Jenna?" I watched his face do something I'll never fully forget, a full, visible collapse, the specific look of a person realizing the ground they'd been standing on for months had just given out beneath them. "How do you know that name?" he said, which was, in its own quiet way, a confession. "Your mother told me. She thought I already knew." He sat down slowly across from me. For a long moment he didn't say anything at all, and I understood, in that silence, exactly how long this had been going on, because a man caught off guard by something recent stammers and denies. A man caught by something that's been going on for a while goes quiet, because some small, tired part of him is almost relieved it's finally over. "How long?" I asked. 8 months, he said. 8 months. 240-some days of a life I thought was ordinary and shared, that had actually been split quietly in half without my knowledge, one version for me and one version for someone named Jenna from his office. I asked the question I think everyone asks in that moment. even knowing it rarely produces a satisfying answer. Why? He didn't have anything good. He said something about feeling invisible at work, about a specific stretch of months where things between us had felt routine rather than close, about Jenna making him feel interesting again. None of it was an excuse. He knew that even as he said it, I could see it on his face, the specific shame of hearing your own justification out loud and realizing how thin it sounds. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything, though I understand why people do. I mostly just felt a strange, heavy stillness, like watching a house you've lived in for years slowly reveal that its foundation had been cracked the entire time you were living inside it. I moved out 3 weeks later, into a small apartment closer to my sister. The dogs stayed with Marcus since the house was his before we married, which felt like its own small, specific grief on top of the larger one. What surprised me most in the months that followed wasn't the anger, though there was plenty of that. It was how much I started questioning my own perception of the previous 8 months. Every dinner, every ordinary Tuesday, every moment I'd thought was simply our life, replaying itself through a lens I didn't have the language for yet. My therapist called it a specific kind of grief, mourning not just the relationship, but the version of the past you thought you'd actually lived. Diane called me again about a month after that first call, awkward and apologetic in a way I'd genuinely never heard from her before. I should have kept my mouth shut, she said. I'm sorry, I just assumed. Don't apologize, I told her, and I meant it. You're the only person in this who told me the truth without meaning to. Everyone else in his life knew and said nothing. That detail, more than almost anything else, stayed with me. Marcus's closest friend had known for months. A coworker of mine, married to one of his coworkers, had known. An entire quiet network of people had apparently decided, individually, that it wasn't their place to tell me the truth about my own marriage. It took his mother, of all people, mistakenly assuming I already had it, to actually say it out loud. It's been a 1.5 years now. I'm doing better than I expected to be doing most days. I still see Diane occasionally, which surprises people when I mention it. We've built something small and strange out of the wreckage, an odd, specific kindness between two people who were both, in different ways, kept in the dark by the same man. What I understand now, that I didn't understand at 35, sitting on that kitchen floor, is that betrayal rarely announces itself cleanly. It doesn't usually arrive through the person who owes you the truth. Sometimes it arrives sideways, through an accident, through someone who assumed you already knew, and you're left rebuilding an entire timeline of your own life from a single, unintentional sentence. If this story affected you, tell me in the comments. Would you rather find out the truth by accident, the way I did, or would you want someone to sit you down and tell you directly? Subscribe for more true stories like this one.